The sun, a fiery orb in the turquoise sky, beat down on Port Royal, its heat shimmering off the whitewashed buildings and cobbled streets. The air was thick with the scent of salt, rum, and the sweat of men who had spent too long at sea. This bustling port, a haven for both merchants and scoundrels, was a place where fortunes were made and lives were lost with equal speed. It was here, amidst the raucous crowd, that the pirate captain, Elias Thorne, found himself in chains. His crew had been betrayed, a deal gone sour with a treacherous merchant who had set a trap with the British Royal Navy. Elias, a man known for his cunning and ferocity, now stood shackled, his proud posture and defiant gaze the only things unbroken. His captors, a group of burly sailors from a merchant vessel, had him on display, mocking him for a price. "Look at the great Captain Thorne!" one of them bellowed, pushing him roughly. "Reduced to a common street dog. A shilling to spit on the man who plundered the sea serpent." The crowd, a mix of curious onlookers and hostile locals, jeered and threw rotten fruit. Elias gritted his teeth, his knuckles white as he clenched his fists. The humiliation was a deeper wound than any blade. He had always prided himself on his independence, his ability to outsmart any foe. To be paraded like a spectacle, a symbol of his own failure, was a torture he hadn't prepared for. "He's not so tough now, is he?" Another sailor taunted, kicking his shin. Elias stumbled but didn't fall. He met the man's eyes, a cold fire burning in his own. "You'll regret that," he growled, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. The sailor laughed, but a hint of unease flickered in his eyes. He knew the reputation of the man before him. Just as another boot was raised to strike, a voice cut through the commotion, clear and commanding. "Stop hurting him! He's mine! I'll pay!" A hush fell over the crowd. From the edge of the throng, a woman emerged. She was an uncommon sight in this port, not a common tavern girl or a weathered merchant's wife. Her dress, though simple, was made of fine silk, its color a deep emerald that contrasted sharply with the dusty street. Her hair, a cascade of dark brown curls, was pulled back, revealing a face of striking beauty and a jawline set with unwavering resolve. This was Isabella, the daughter of a wealthy merchant, a woman confined to a life of arranged marriages and societal expectations, yet with a spirit as untamed as the sea itself. Isabella had seen Elias before, her father's ships having been targets of his, but she had always felt a strange fascination for the pirate's audacity and freedom. She saw past the grime and the chains to the man who held a certain dignity, even in his lowest moment. The sight of him being mistreated stirred something within her, a mix of pity, admiration, and a fierce protective instinct. "Who are you?" one of the sailors sneered, his eyes raking over her. "You have no business here, girl. This is a pirate." "I have business with you," she retorted, her voice steady. She reached into a small purse at her waist and pulled out a handful of gold coins, the glint of the metal catching the sunlight. "I'll take him. Name your price." The sailor's eyes widened. A pile of gold was a more compelling argument than any moral high ground. They quickly agreed, unchaining Elias and roughly pushing him toward her. He stumbled, catching his balance, his eyes locked on hers. He couldn't understand why this woman, this lady of high society, would pay for his freedom. "Why?" he asked, his voice raw. Isabella didn't answer. She simply looked at him, a silent plea in her eyes. "Come with me," she said, her voice barely a whisper. She led him through the winding back alleys, the oppressive heat giving way to the cool shade of narrow passageways. They walked in silence, the only sound the clinking of his loosened chains and the distant clamor of the port. As they reached a secluded dock where a small skiff was moored, Elias finally spoke. "What do you want from me?" he demanded, his tone guarded. "A ransom? You'll get nothing. I have no treasure to give." "I want no ransom," Isabella replied. turning to face him. "I want to help you. I can get you a new ship, a new crew. My family has connections, resources. I can get you out of Port Royal, away from the Navy." Elias scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "Why? What's in it for you?" "I've seen what this life is like, Elias," she said, her voice filled with an unexpected depth of emotion. "My life is one of gilded cages and forced smiles. I saw you, and I saw a man who was truly free, even in chains. I don't want to see that light go out." He stared at her, genuinely taken aback. This wasn't a game. This was a genuine offer of help from a woman who saw him not as a monster, but as something more. The cynical pirate in him told him to be cautious, but the man, humbled and beaten, felt a flicker of hope. He made a decision. "All right," he said, his voice softer now. "Help me, and I will repay you, but not with gold." He looked at the skiff, then at her. "With my life and my loyalty." In the dead of night, the sea was a vast, inky expanse reflecting the starlight like scattered diamonds. Elias and Isabella sailed the small skiff away from Port Royal, their movements silent and purposeful. Isabella's knowledge of the coastal waters and her father's trade routes proved invaluable. She steered them towards a secluded cove where an old but seaworthy sloop lay hidden. A gift from a sympathetic captain who owed a favor to Isabella's family. Elias, still weary and sore, took the helm as soon as they were away from the docks, the familiar feel of the ship's wheel bringing a sense of purpose back to his weary bones. Isabella watched him, observing the way his hands moved with an almost instinctual grace, the way his eyes scanned the horizon, searching for danger. He was a different man on the sea, confident, capable, and alive. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice low. "To Tortuga," he replied, his eyes still on the horizon. "It's a pirate haven. I have friends there. They can help me get a crew, supplies, and from there we can figure out our next move." The journey was a chance for them to talk, to truly see each other beyond their preconceived notions. Isabella spoke of her life of confinement, of the pressure to marry a man she did not love, and the suffocating expectations of her social standing. Elias, in turn, spoke of his life at sea, the camaraderie of his crew, the thrill of the chase, and the constant threat of the gallows. He admitted his mistakes, the arrogance that led to his capture, and the loneliness that came with a life of constant vigilance. He learned that her spirit was not as fragile as her demeanor suggested. Her quiet determination, her intelligence, and her courage in defying her world for him deeply impressed him. She, in turn, saw the man behind the fearsome legend, a man of honor and loyalty, forged by the unforgiving sea. The connection between them was growing, not as a romantic fantasy, but as a mutual respect born from shared vulnerabilities and a desire for freedom. As they neared Tortuga, a new challenge emerged. A storm, sudden and violent, descended upon them. The waves crashed over the sloop, threatening to capsize it. The wind howled like a banshee, tearing at the sails. Elias, a master of the sea, fought against the storm, his muscles straining, his mind focused, but the sloop was small, and the storm was relentless. "Hang on!" he yelled over the roar of the wind, his voice strained. A rogue wave, a monster of the deep, slammed into the side of the ship, sending it reeling. Isabella, caught off guard, was thrown against the mast, her head hitting the rough wood with a sickening thud. She fell to the deck, unconscious, a thin stream of blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. Elias, a storm raging inside him, let out a cry of frustration and fear. He couldn't leave the helm, not with the ship on the verge of sinking. His years of training, his survival instinct, told him to ride out the storm. But his heart, now bound to this woman, screamed at him to go to her. He was torn between his duty as a captain and his overwhelming desire to protect her. He made a split-second decision. He lashed the helm, hoping it would hold for a few moments, and scrambled to Isabella's side. He carefully checked her pulse, his heart pounding in his chest. It was weak, but steady. He lifted her into his arms, carrying her to the small cabin below deck, away from the lashing rain and wind. He tore a strip from his own shirt and carefully bandaged her head, his hands, so accustomed to the brutality of battle, now moving with a tender, focused care. Back at the helm, he faced the raging storm alone, his face grim. He would not lose her. He would not fail. He would not let her sacrifice be in vain. He fought with every ounce of his strength, his body aching, his mind a blur of determination. When the dawn finally broke, the storm had passed, leaving in its wake a calm, serene sea. Elias slumped against the mast, exhausted but alive. He looked at the cabin door, a profound sense of relief washing over him. He had faced the sea's fury and won, but this time it was not for gold or glory, but for her. They landed in Tortuga, a port of lawless, rugged inhabitants. It was a stark contrast to Port Royal, with its simple rules: respect, strength, and cunning. Elias was met by his loyal first mate Santiago, whose face broke into a wide grin. "Elias, we thought you were dead. What happened?" Elias recounted their ordeal, introducing Santiago to Isabella. The first mate, initially skeptical, saw the change in his captain. Elias had found a new reason to fight. "We need a new ship," Elias said. "We're getting the Wanderer back." News of his survival spread, and his old crew, scattered and disheartened, returned. They were a motley group, but they were a family ready to reclaim their lost glory. Isabella, instead of leaving for safety, stayed. Her knowledge of merchant routes and sharp mind helped plan the audacious raid to reclaim the Wanderer from the traitor, Marcus. The final confrontation took place on the open sea. Elias and his crew, fueled by righteous anger, fought with savage grace. He found Marcus on the deck and disarmed him. "It's not about the ship, Marcus," Elias said, his voice hard. "It's about what you took from me, my freedom, my crew, and my honor. It's time to pay the price." With the battle won and the Wanderer reclaimed, Elias stood on the deck as the sun set. He looked at Isabella, who had stood by him as a beacon of light in his darkest hour. He walked to her, taking her hand. "I promised I'd repay you with my life and loyalty. I'll always be a pirate, Isabella, but because of you, I'm no longer a lost man. I've found a new purpose, a new home." She squeezed his hand, her eyes full of love. "And I have found my freedom, Elias, with you, on the sea." They stood together, a pirate captain and a woman of society, their lives now intertwined. Their love was a compass, guiding them towards a horizon of their own making. If you enjoyed this story of a chained pirate and the lady who set him free, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more exciting adventures.